Okay, well, welcome everyone to our webinar. We are so excited to see everyone. We see familiar names, we see some new names. Some of you are current clients, and we're really excited about the content that we're going to present. And as I was mentioning before, this will be the first of a series of webinars that we are going to present in the future. And our intent is for this webinar to be interactive. And so you'll be able to ask questions throughout the webinar. Just put it in the Q&A, and then also feel free to hit that reactions button, as some of you have already discovered. And I'd like to mention that financial planning is such a broad topic. And so we can't cover everything in just an hour, but we'll do our best to provide valuable insights. And we also want to save time for questions. So we're trying to balance value and time for any questions that you may have. So in the future, if there's a topic that you would like to for us to cover in the future, please put that in the chat. And we also value your feedback so that we can make these webinars even better. And yes, this webinar will be recorded and we'll send everyone a replay. And one disclaimer, this webinar, because of compliance, we're not allowed to give specific investment recommendations. So before implementing any of the information you hear today, be sure that it's appropriate for your situation and consult with a financial professional. Okay, so all the disclaimers are gone. All righty, so let's begin. So meet your hosts. My name is Angela Dorsey. Most of you know me. I'm the founder and financial advisor, Dorsey Wealth Management, and I started my firm 13 years ago. It's really amazing how time has just really flown by. I majored in computer science, and then I got my MBA from UCLA. I spent 20 plus years as a compensation specialist helping managers and VPs determine how much to pay their people and how much, in bonuses they should award their people. And I enjoyed this, but I always felt like there was something else I was meant to do. And I've always had a passion for financial planning. And while I was in the corporate environment, I found myself frequently helping my coworkers with 401k questions and other financial matters. And I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed helping the women. And I found that there was a huge gap between the knowledge that women had. And these women were really smart women, just doing really well in their career. But I found that when it came to their finances, they just didn't have the confidence that they wanted to have to manage their finances well. And so I got this idea, like, wow, it would be so great if I could do this for a living, helping women feel more confident about their finances. And so gradually I shifted from a corporate job to having my own firm. And it's been great. Every day I get to live my best life helping women with their finances. And I think this is great. This is, my dream of what I've been able to do. So that's me in a nutshell. And now I'd like to introduce Amy Marietta. She's our Associate Financial Advisor.
Thanks so much, Angela. Um, yes, I've definitely met a good handful of the people here, so it's nice to see your names, and hi to everyone I haven't met yet. I am so thankful and happy to be a part of the Dorsey Wealth Management team. My background's a little bit unconventional. I am a conservatory trained flutist. I worked as a musician for 20 plus years, but I've always been rather nerdy about money ever since I started earning it. Um, let's see, during the pandemic, I was contemplating a job shift and I was trying to figure out what direction to go. And the only thing I could think of that I was as passionate about as music was finances. As nerdy as that sounds, my husband and I had really gotten into the weeds about our own finances as we were trying to get out of student loan debt and some credit card debt, and uh, on my husband's side as we were trying to combine our finances and figure out how to buy a house, all of the big things that we're all trying to do as we're getting started. So when I was pondering what to do and how to shift, I started thinking about my mom. I was raised by a single mother, and She, over the years, did go see several financial advisors, and I remember her commenting on how she felt like she would be treated differently if she had been with a man in a meeting, and she felt like she was minimized in some of the meetings, partially because of her stature. She's very petite. She's a small little Asian lady. But it kind of inspired me. I really wanted to go into financial planning with the intent to make a safe space for women to discuss finances and to feel like they were gaining knowledge, not just being spoken to or down to. So I really was so fortunate and so happy to meet Angela through the Financial Planners Association. I thought it was just such a wonderful it was a wonderful opportunity to meet someone who was already in the field and working with women directly. So I felt like it was kismet, and I was so thankful that we were connected through that. So when she asked me if I wanted to join the team, I was like 100% absolutely yes, sign me up. So I'm so grateful to be here. Um, but yes, my main goal right now is just to try to get rid of the mystery behind financial and personal matters, and try to help women understand the process of what financial planning actually is.
Well, thank you, Amy. Thank you. It's been a joy having you on the team. I really enjoyed working with you.
Likewise.
And also Michelle, she's not on the webinar today, but Michelle is our client service manager, and she's fabulous too. And so I'm so fortunate to have such a great team. All righty, so let's move on. So how many of you identify with this? You may wonder, will I really be okay in retirement? And you may have done a really good job saving, but you still feel uncertain and you want peace of mind. Well, I tell you, we hear this a lot, and you're not alone. According to a Transamerica Center retirement study in 2022, only 18% of working women feel very confident about fully retiring with a comfortable lifestyle, and only 24% have a written retirement strategy. And as a matter of fact, these are actual retirement concerns that we received from today's webinar attendees. You may recognize some of these as your own. Um, I have concerns about taxes and Medicare. I want to understand the best allocation at this time of my life. Ensuring I have enough to retire. Confidence, that's a big thing, that the funds will last. And I don't want to run out of money. I think a common theme with women, we're very security conscious, and we have a common fear of running out of money. So again, you're not alone at all. Now, what you'll learn today, you'll learn the truth about women and retirement, 3 steps to build financial confidence, how to apply this strategy, and we'll have a little mystery here at the end. What is the biggest mistake that women make when planning for retirement? And it's not what you think. I don't think you can guess it, but it is something that we feel really passionate about. So we'll definitely talk about that towards the end of the presentation. And then also, I just want to mention, Amy and I, we really value clear communication with our clients. And so if during the webinar we mention jargon or something that you just don't understand, please put it in the Q&A, and we're more than happy to define what that means. So, all righty.
There are so many acronyms in financial planning. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and we're just so used to saying it, and then we realize, you know what, that's jargon. So we catch each other, jargon, jargon. So just let us know. All righty, so now the truth about women and retirement. So how about Amy? How about you? How about you review with the group here why retirement planning for women is so different?
Absolutely. Retirement planning is very unique for women. We face different challenges than men do. Uh, not most of the time, often women will make less money and they'll have less work experience because of a disproportionate amount of caregiving. According to the Free Time Gender Gap Study, women spend 50% more of their time caregiving than men do, whether that's their children, their parents, their spouses, it sometimes just themselves, but mostly for other people, unfortunately. So, because of that, often women have less time in the workforce. Either they're completely out of the workforce in child rearing or taking care of elderly parents, or they're working part-time because of their obligations in the home. So in addition to that, women also actually live 5 to 6 years longer than men do. So because of this, we often experience higher healthcare costs. So on average, women pay 18% higher out-of-pocket healthcare costs than men do. Women tend to be the unpaid caregivers for their husbands when they are elderly, but who's going to take care of them when they need help? So that often comes in the form of paid long-term care. So let's see. Yes, there are also other, I mean, often women will be alone too if they're single or their spouse has passed away, if they're divorced. There are all these different situations that arise in retirement, sometimes not until the retirement years. And the adjustments that you have to make really can affect your finances. So it's a matter of preparing for it appropriately and making sure that you have coverage for it, whether that's insurance or in cash flow yourself.
Thanks, Amy. And we'll dive more deeply into the healthcare concerns because that is a really big issue for women. All righty. Okay, when we refer to a retirement plan or a financial plan, these are the pieces that make up a complete financial plan. And I found in the industry that there's this tendency to think that just investment management is a financial plan. And as you can see here, it is just one piece. And it really takes all of these pieces, we call it pieces of the pie. All of these pieces really create a full financial plan. And I've found that, some women, they may have a financial advisor, but they still feel insecure. They still don't have the confidence that they are seeking. And it's because they don't really have a financial plan. It's just about investments. So the person that they're working with is only looking at the investments, but not really talking to them about their goals, their values, um, making sure they have the right tax planning and estate planning documents, insurance planning. So there's all of these different pieces that come up, that create a comprehensive financial plan.
I really feel for people as they're shopping for advisors. It is
I
so
know.
complicated.
Yes.
You hear so many people advertise themselves as advisors, and it's such a ubiquitous term at this point. It's hard to know what that actually means. At Dorsey Wealth Management, we're fee-only, comprehensive financial advisors. So because of that, we are going to look at all of the different pieces of this pie. There are times that you will see people kind of advertising themselves as advisors, and really they're selling insurance, or they're only doing investment management. I have several friends who have told me that they have advisors, and they're like, well, why isn't my advisor talking to me about estate planning? I know I need a will. We need a trust. And I'm going, well, what kind of agreement do you have? And when they actually go look at the agreement that they've signed, it's really just for investments. But they think that because they're working with someone that calls themselves an advisor, that they're getting the whole shebang. It is very, very tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a question here. The question is there a general healthy ratio between the components of a financial plan?
That's a great question.
And yeah, that's a great question. And I would say it depends on your situation. If you are, a younger family and you have young kids and you don't have life insurance, then insurance planning is more important. Or if you need long-term care insurance, then insurance planning is more important. If you are at the stage where you're planning for retirement and you're looking forward in terms of how to best withdraw your retirement funds in a tax efficient way, then tax planning is more important for you. So I would say at each stage in your life, a component can take center stage. They're all very important, but depending on what's going on in your life, one may be a priority for you. And for example, when we onboard a new client, if there are high priority items, we hit that first. We still have a full comprehensive plan, but we hit the high priority items first. If they own a home and don't have a trust, they definitely need a trust, or if there's some other estate planning um, issues that need to be resolved, we do that first. So
I
yes,
like
really
I
depends.
like to compare a financial advisor kind of like functional medicine, if anyone knows what that is. I've had a myriad of doctors for various reasons, and the functional doctor always treated it as the person who looked over the entire all of the healthcare needs together. Like you go to specialists for all of these different areas of your life, and the functional doctor is the one who kind of makes sure that you're seeing everybody and seeing if any of those connections are missing. So as advisors, we're kind of walking in and looking at somebody going, okay, this is where you are at this point in your life. These are the risks that we see. How are they filled in within your current estate plan, within your tax planning, et cetera? And then from there, we're trying to triage and trying to make sure that we've taken care of the most important, most detrimental factors that could happen if something were to happen to you, especially. We want to make sure that you are cared for, your spouse, your loved ones are all cared for well. And that's a much bigger picture. So sometimes that's us just saying, oh, you really need to go see an estate attorney, and then let's come back and reassess the rest of it. But we need to make sure that that's taken care of first. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And there's another piece that I like to think of as the foundation of this pie, and that's communication and having a trusting relationship
Mhm.
with your advisor. I think that is so key because all too often, individuals they maybe speak with their current advisor once or twice a year and not really dive deeply into what's important to you, your values, and your goals. And you really, as an advisor, I need to know that so that as life changes for that client, you know how to best guide them, through life's changes. And it should be a rewarding relationship. And I still remember this one lady before she came on. She mentioned that going to her prior advisor was like going to the dentist.
Oh
It was very
dear.
painful. Yeah, that painful. So she really tried to minimize interactions with her advisor at the time.
I know everyone wants to kind of roll their eyes when they hear things like they ask a question and the answer is it depends, or it depends on what you want, or there are these kind of personalized responses where we're saying like, oh well, we can't really advise without knowing more. And that's really the truth. We want to make sure that we're not missing anything as we give advice. And if you're talking to someone who's only giving investment advice, they're only looking at one segment of your life. We want to make sure that we're preparing you for your long-term goals, not just the short term. So it's a little different viewpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going back to that prior question, which piece, is there a certain ratio? I think it depends on life stages. So Amy, um, right now, what piece of this pie is most relevant to you?
Well, we have little kids, so I think at this point, cash flow is really what we're focusing on. We're trying to figure out how to allocate all our money to make sure we're saving appropriately for retirement and for college savings and camp and all of those fun inflationary things that are going on right now, etc. So, what about you, Angela?
I would say tax planning.
Mm.
Um, at this point, my husband and I, we have two adult children, so we may not have the same challenges, that you have at your life stage, but tax planning, I'm really interested in, for the future, how can I minimize my taxes?
Mhm.
So that is kind of like number one on my mind right now.
That's a fun one.
Oh,
Makes
it's a
such a
fun
huge
one.
difference.
Yes, yes, which we'll talk more about.
Mhm.
Um, but before we move on to the next slide, do we have any questions? Anyone have any questions that they would like to answer? Just want to check because we can just talk, and just make sure that, remember, if you have any questions, please just put it in the Q&A. And even if it's a different question, maybe even if it's not relevant to this, but you have a question, we're going to make sure to get to all questions during this webinar. So if you do have a question, just put it in the Q&A and we'll be more than happy to answer it. Okay. So given that financial planning is so broad, what steps can you take now to build your financial confidence? So today, what we're going to do is focus on a three-step process for understanding your cash flow, planning for healthcare costs, and then investing for financial independence. All right, first one, understanding your cash flow. So basically, you need to know what you spend. And there's different ways to go about this. My way is different from Amy's way. And so Amy, why don't you talk to the group about cash flow? And first of all, when we say cash flow, what does that mean? And then if you could share what you do for your family.
Absolutely. I like the basic feeling of cash flow being just movement of money. So it's what's coming in and it's what's going out. I think the technical definition is income minus expenses. So we're looking at how much money do you have that are required expenses, how much are discretionary expenses, how much are you able to save, do you have debt? What kind of debt is it? Sometimes that's kind of a big question in there too. Is it consumer debt? Is it a mortgage? There are all kinds of variations of all of this too. So that's really what we mean when we're talking about what cash flow is. That also tends to go into how are we allocating the money into different segments as well. Like how much can someone afford to pay for a vacation? Should you increase your insurance because taking on that higher premium might actually be better for you long term because you'll pay less out of pocket. Are you planning on moving anytime soon? Do you have other expenses that we should know about just generally? Are there alimony payments, child support, etc., things like that? So in our family, we are because we started with student loan debt that we were really trying to pay off. We did a very nitty gritty in the weeds budget, and we had some really interesting, tense conversations in the course of doing that. And after we got that budget in place, it's just become normal for us. So we are now, a couple of houses in and thankfully done with all of our debt. And we're just trying to figure out retirement and college savings at this point. But it's actually become easier for our relationship because we don't fight anymore. We know basically what's being spent. We can communicate without actually talking about our day-to-day spending. So I use a really very specific budget at this point. I don't think that that's required for most people, especially if you're not in debt anymore and you're just trying to figure out your general cash flow and what's appropriate. I don't think that having a nitty-gritty budget is necessary for most. So in that respect, we also do kind of look back at the last year's spending and just kind of take an overview of the different segments and how much percentage-wise we're spending in each area as well. So that's kind of what we're doing. What about you, Angela? What do you guys?
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think you mentioned a key point that when you look at your expenses, it doesn't have to be exact. It's really an estimate. And so to get back to myself, what we do is I have a spreadsheet. We developed a spreadsheet that our clients use, and I actually use it myself, and it has all of the categories that you could possibly have in terms of spending. And there's a column where you could put in the amounts monthly, or you can put it in annually, however you manage that particular expense. And then it totals it up and it lets you know, okay, this is how much you spend. And I know I use it and our clients use it. And it's a really great tool. If anyone on this webinar would like a copy, just let us know and we're more than happy to send you a copy of it. And so I revisit that spreadsheet probably twice a year because things change, especially right now with inflation. Things change, and it's good to just have a nice estimate of how much you spend. And in addition to that, I also use our client portal that our clients use. And what the client portal does is You connect your credit cards and your debit cards, and then it categorizes things for you, and then it puts it into categories, and then you can teach it how you want certain things categorized. And so the spreadsheet is more, this is what I think I'm spending, and then the client portal shows you what you're actually spending. And usually there's a difference, unfortunately, but it's all about awareness. And I tell you, each and every client that goes through this, they're always surprised when they find out, wow, that's how much I spend. And the point is not to go on a budget. You know, if you have if you pay off your credit cards every month, and if you feel you're funding your future, you know, you're saving, if you're working, you're investing, you know, 401k, IRA, or whatever your situation is, as long as you're funding your goals and you don't have a lot of credit card debt, then you probably don't need a budget. But it's important to know how much you spend, especially when it comes to retirement planning, because you need a number. You know, you
Mhm.
have a pot of money. However, how much you spend is important, and you need to know that. And as the slide here, you know, I'm not going to read the slide, but underestimating expenses is the greatest retirement derailer, where you think, oh, you know, I'm only spending 50,000 a year. Then you find out it's more like 80,000, 100,000. And if that's the case, you want to know that now so that you can properly plan for it. And what does that include? You know, we talked about living expenses, but also include all the fun stuff. You know,
Mhm.
include vacations, healthcare, inflation too. That might be a little more difficult to model, but just know that things will increase. In our financial planning system, we're using an inflation rate of 2.54 so that everything gets inflated each year to accurately reflect what something may cost in the future. And then also taxes. And then also think about, do you think you'll move, downsize? And then also be aware that even if your mortgage is paid off, if you think, oh, wow, you know, my mortgage and retirement's going to be paid off, I'm not going to have any expenses, it's going to be great. I found that rarely is the case, where you still have property taxes and your property tax goes up every year. And then you have maintenance. And so as your home gets older, there's more maintenance that you have to worry about. So,
Oh, don't forget insurance.
oh, insurance. Oh my,
That's a very
oh,
unpleasant and huge expense these days.
that is a big one right now,
Uh-huh.
unfortunately, with the wildfires. You know, insurance premiums have gone through the roof. I have actually had to update my own insurance costs on that spreadsheet I was telling you about for home and auto. You know, I was kind of expecting it for home, but then the auto, why would auto go up so much? But I guess that's another webinar.
Our home insurance, we live near the Altadena area, and because of that, our home insurance was, well, actually, right before the fires, they tried to cancel our policy. So we were looking at doing uh, yes, Tina, totally. Um, we noticed that the insurance company was trying to drop us because of fire risk. And in the course of looking for fair plan, we realized that the cost of that was going to be 4 times what our current home insurance is going to cost. We ended up getting reinstated last minute, but I want to mention it just because it is such a huge expense. And if you're not expecting it, 4 times the cost is huge. Like no one's anticipating that. But I think across the industry, we're all agreeing just be very aware that it's very likely that your home insurance rates are going to go up this year, as well as your auto insurance. So just keep an eye on that and put it in the budget now. Just know that it's coming.
Yeah, that's for sure. If you haven't gotten your bill yet, you'll sit down when you open the envelope because it's going to be much
Yes.
higher. Yeah, home and auto.
There is a certain freedom, I think, when it comes to knowing your expenses. And I think that's one area that doesn't get focused on very much when people talk about budgeting. When you do have a real idea of what you're spending from year to year, there's a piece that comes along with that where you feel like you have an idea that you are going to be okay. You know what your planned expenses are going to be, and you also know what you can spend on things. And there's a freedom to that that I think we don't talk about a whole lot. When you know you can afford that vacation and you don't have to stress about it, I think it's a little bit more fun. Maybe that's because I'm a finance person, but I swear there's some joy in knowing that you're okay.
Well, I think it goes back to being confident and having peace of mind regarding your finances. It's all about awareness and knowledge. And we do have a question. Are you anticipating these expenses will go up due to the impending tariffs? Yes, I do. I do expect them, some more than others. And so I know that, well, the situation seems to change frequently, but from what I understand, certain items will definitely increase. And so if you're thinking of purchasing that new car, I was just reading yesterday that they're expecting mattresses to go up in price. I thought that's odd. So you just never know the implications. The implications of the tariff seems to be very far-reaching. So if you're planning a big expense, you may want to budget a little more just so that you're not surprised. And then just be prepared for that. But
Or
thank you
move
for
up the purchase date as well, possibly.
yeah,
If you can.
they have already happened, um,
Mhm.
but it will only get worse. So yes, yes, expenses will go up. And then someone made a comment, looking at your money also helps you manage the fear. And yes, it comes down to, what is confidence and peace of mind. Part of it is just knowing what you can spend. And this bottom statement here, you don't want to overspend, obviously. You don't want to run out of money, but you also don't want to underspend. And that's part of confidence. If you've worked hard and you've saved for retirement, you don't want to feel hesitant about going on that vacation. You want to know, you know what, this vacation is in my financial plan and I'm going to enjoy myself and I won't run out of money. That's part of the enjoyment to spend money and know that you're allowed to spend.
Mhm.
And Amy and I, we had a lot of fun with this last week. We were meeting with some clients, and after doing their plan, we realized that they could spend more on vacation. So we said, you know what? We're doubling your vacation budget. And they were so happy. It's their money, but I felt like we were giving them permission to spend more money on vacation. But what we gave them was peace of mind that yes, you can spend money. You can go on that luxurious vacation and you will be just fine. And so they'll go on that vacation and feel really peaceful and good about that.
Mhm.
All righty. Let's see. Let's move on here. So number two, step two, healthcare and long-term care planning. What's really interesting about this piece is that when we dove into it, we found out there's so much here to talk about. We could really have a separate webinar just on this topic. But first of all, when you talk about long-term care, what is long-term care? Long-term care is not medical care, therefore it's not covered by Medicare or healthcare insurance. Rather, long-term care relates to assistance with what we call the activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, eating, and a Morningstar 2024 survey stated that women are more likely to need paid long-term care than men. That was one of the items that we had talked about earlier. And the duration of that care tends to be longer. And 51% of women aged 65 and over will need some form of paid long-term care, while only 39% of men 65 plus will need such care. And one thing that we're seeing, and I think it's pretty common knowledge that with a traditional married couple, the woman usually takes care of the man. So she is his long-term care plan. She takes care of him. There may be a lot of expenses involved, so they deplete their assets. And then when it comes to her, what who's going to take care of her, what money is left. And she is normally left dealing with the situation alone, so it's more challenging. And so you think, oh gosh, that really sounds overwhelming. And there's ways, there's long-term care insurance, and that is a whole webinar by itself. But there's long-term care insurance. The challenge with long-term care insurance is that the premiums are very high, and we're finding that the benefits are getting smaller and smaller. They're slowly decreasing the benefits, but increasing the premiums. I have clients who have a long-term care policy and they've had it for years, like 20 years. And then they'll get a letter in the mail saying, oh, your premium will go up, or you can reduce your services. You have a choice. And I'm thinking that's not what they signed up for. It's really unfair.
Mhm.
So there's the long-term care insurance piece. And then there's also ways to self-fund. Self-fund is becoming more and more popular with our clients in terms of how to fund long-term care. And there's some really tax-efficient ways to fund that. There are HSA accounts, which stands for Healthcare Savings Accounts. And Amy and I were thinking this would be a really good webinar to just talk about
Mhm.
HSAs. And I just came back from Phoenix, attending a financial planning conference, and they talked a bit. I went to a workshop on HSAs, and they're saying that HSAs will become the 401ks in the future because this healthcare crisis is coming, and people will need a vehicle to pay for these costs in a very tax efficient way. And I keep mentioning the word tax efficient, tax efficient. What that means is that you don't incur a lot of taxes as a result of using a pot of money. And so with HSAs, that allows you to do that. And then also Roth IRAs. Roth IRA is a way where you put money in, you don't get a benefit now, but the money goes in and it grows for you tax-free, and you can pull it out tax-free. And I know, Amy, you really like HSA accounts. You used a term the other day. What was that you said?
The the tax trifecta. It's the mecca of taxes. Meaning that as you put the money into the account, you get a tax deduction. The money grows tax-free, and when you withdraw it, if you're using it for medical expenses, you don't have to pay taxes on it when it comes out either. So it grows in so many different areas, and you don't have to pay the taxes on it on any of the sides of it. So it's a really wonderful vehicle if it's an option for you. I did just want to mention that there are two different types of healthcare accounts. So just to be clear, we are talking about healthcare savings accounts, which are attached to health insurance plans with high deductibles, versus the flexible savings account, or FSA. So if you have an FSA, that is not an account that you can roll from year to year. You're required to use those funds within the calendar year that you are in. But an HSA account you can fund in a current year and then use in future years. So that's more what we're referring to when we're talking about using it for long-term care expenses.
Exactly. Exactly. All righty. So for the sake of time, because we're running up against time here, we want to be respectful of everyone's time. I won't go through this chart and read it. Everyone will get a replay. But I was thinking the other day, Amy, you shared a story with me, and I thought it would be better if perhaps you share a story that was very meaningful to you regarding this topic. And I think that the group here will get a lot of value out of it.
Absolutely. Um, My mom has a very old long-term care insurance policy. So as I start the story, I do just want to mention that it is an old policy. I think it's 25 years old. And she did get one of those letters like what you were describing, Angela. She actually did have to decide whether she was going to pay the higher premium, which is what she ended up doing, and we were very thankful for, versus reducing or just canceling the policy altogether. So my mom this was about 2 years ago. She was in relatively good health. She's retired. She had kind of a random freak accident, and she ended up in the hospital and in a skilled nursing facility. And she ended up moving in with us for a number of months, and she needed 24-hour assistance during that period of time. Um, at the time, I had a toddler at home, and my daughter was only in half-day daycare, at kindergarten, excuse me, not just daycare. But we definitely had young ones in diapers at the time. And my mom moving in with us was a challenge because she needed assistance for a lot of the activities of daily living. She needed help showering and using the restroom and all of those things. So I was very thankful at the time that she did have her long-term care insurance policy. Because it was an older one, she has a 0-day elimination period. I do want to mention too, majority of long-term care insurance policies being sold now usually have a 90-day elimination period, which means that you have to have this injury or whatever unfortunate situation you're in, you have to need assistance for 90 days before your insurance policy will even start kicking in for the care. So you have to cash flow 90 days before they start paying. For my mom, she had a 0 day elimination period, so that did not apply to her. But even with the insurance, it only covered 8 hours of care in home, and the costs were front loaded. This was something that we were not very clear on before we got into this process. There was a deposit that was required for her to become a client. She had to pay out of pocket for that. Initially, excuse me, she did get reimbursed for this, but she had to have the cash up front to be able to sign on as a client, and she had to pay her weekly care expenses up front. So it took more than 6 weeks for her reimbursements to begin. The paperwork to get the insurance policy in place to make sure that it was activated basically for her was very cumbersome. It took so much time. We had multiple appointments for them to even deem that she was needing the forms of care that needed the assistance for the activities of daily living. So those are bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, incontinence, and eating. So we had a number of appointments where they said, yes, she does need that care. And then it was a very slow process for the paperwork to go through. So it took her over 6 weeks that she was paying and had to have the cash in order to receive that care. She was just not expecting that, considering how much she had paid in the premiums over the years. She thought, well, I have this insurance. They're just going to cover it. It's not going to be a problem. Thankfully, at the time, it was okay. We made it all work. I just want to share this in case anyone else out there does have a long-term care insurance policy. It is much more complicated than it sounds initially. You think, okay, I'm good, no worries. Everything's going to be fine if I have an accident. And it was a very complicated process for both of us. One thing I do want to mention too is that she did have a durable power of attorney where I was going to be in charge if something was wrong. But the problem was is that her long-term care insurance company wanted their own written power of attorney. So it had to be their form. So if you do have an insurance policy, please check in with your company and get any of those forms signed in advance. I ended up being in her hospital room, having to have her sign this. She doesn't remember signing it. She was on so many drugs at the time. She couldn't remember that this happened. So I just don't want other people to have to go through this if it's avoidable at all. Um, I can say it's cash is king in these situations, in any situation, whether you have the insurance or not. It is really important that you have your emergency fund ready to be accessed so that you can draw on them if you need them, because these accidents are obviously not planned and they come out of nowhere. We've had no inkling that something was going to happen to her. She was totally fine one day and not fine the next. So thankfully she has mostly recovered and she's back in her own place and everything. So I'm happy to report that. But yes, if this can help anyone, I hope it does.
Well, thanks, Amy. Thanks for sharing that. I know that's a very personal story, and I'm glad she's feeling, better now.
Thank
I
you.
think, the lesson there is even if you have long-term care insurance, there's some planning you need to do even with that
Mhm.
before you use the benefit. So
Mhm.
I think that that's a really, really good lesson to remember. So moving on, one last thing about long-term care. You may be wondering, well, gosh, how much does this cost? Well, there's a really great tool, a free tool that you can use. It's called Genworth's Cost of Care website. And it's a tool you just put in your zip code and it'll tell you how much the cost of care is. So I live in Torrance, and I put in the cost of care. And so for in-home care, which is really only 8 hours, it's not like they're there all the time, but for 8 hours of care, it came to 84,656. And then on the high end for a private room, it's 164,240. So if you were to use these costs today, remember, medical costs go up every year. So at least increase that amount. We mentioned that we're using 2.54 as an inflation rate for expenses. Just keep increasing that each year. And for our clients, we have everyone living to the age of 95, and we have them using their portfolio assets for the last 3 years of their life. And when you take this amount and then inflate it over a 10, 20-year period, even 5 years, it just gets really, really expensive. And so for our client financial plans, we just make sure that their plan is built to be able to support those huge long-term care expenses. And then if you don't need it, that's great, but at least you know that it's taken care of and it's in your portfolio, it's in your plan, and you won't run out of money with these types of expenses. All righty, let's see. How are we doing on time? Okay, wow, boy, time is flying here. Step three, invest for independence. We're thinking that our next webinar will be on investments because I just love investments, and there's so much to talk about here. And I really want to talk like 2 hours on this slide, but I can't. But just at a very high level, invest for independence. Well, what does that mean? Having a sound investment strategy is important. So you really want to have, if you're not working with an advisor, have your own investment policy statements in terms of, well, what does a good portfolio look like for you? Meaning, what is your risk tolerance? Are you the type who gets nervous? Well, everyone has been nervous around the latest volatility we've had. We've had just some really extreme volatility, but make sure that your portfolio is in alignment with your risk tolerance and your goals. And the nearer you are to retirement, the more conservative you should be. And well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, when it comes to income and growth, you have really two pieces. When you think of your portfolio, it's like a pie, and there's two halves. There's the income piece, which is fixed income, money market accounts, bonds, CDs, and then you have your equities. And the equities provide the growth. The equities provide the um, means of reaching your goals of beating inflation. So you really need a combination of both. And the allocation for that really depends on how far you are from retirement, your risk tolerance. It also depends on what other assets you have. For example, if you have a huge pension, then perhaps you can be more aggressive with your portfolio as the market goes up and down. You're not as nervous because you have this guaranteed stream of income. And that's why the whole financial plan is important, because it really takes into consideration all of the pieces of your pie. And diversify. You really want to have different types of investments. For example, you want to have American large companies, American small companies, mid cap. You want to have real estate companies. You want to have international emerging markets. And then on the fixed income side, you want to have short-term bonds and intermediate-term bonds. So you really want to be well diversified because you can't time the market. And so if one area gets hit hard, your portfolio just doesn't take a major hit. And then also if one area does well, you're able to take advantage of it. So we believe in not timing the market and really owning the market and having low cost mutual funds and ETFs. And I know I kind of threw out some jargon there, but basically the difference between a mutual fund and an ETF is an ETF. Both are collection of investments, but with an ETF, it trades like a stock. So if you want to buy and sell an ETF, you can buy and sell it all day long, which I don't recommend, but you have that flexibility. And then a mutual fund, you purchase it and you get the purchase price at the end of the day. And then ETFs tend to be have a lower expense ratio, and they also tend to be more tax efficient. So for some of our clients who are more tax sensitive, maybe they're in a higher tax bracket, we tend to go more with ETFs because they're better on taxable accounts than a mutual fund. Let's see. Oh, and we're also planning to have another webinar on investments. We're thinking investments would be a really great next topic, and we're thinking June 18th to have a webinar on investments. So you'll see it announced. I think most of you are on our monthly newsletter, so you'll see it announced in the newsletter, and you can register in the newsletter. If you're not on the newsletter, you can go to our website, dorseywealth.com, and scroll down and you can sign up for the newsletter and you'll be informed of our next webinar. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. Okay, all righty, let's move on. Wow, I tell you, time is flying. Um, Regarding your own investments, you may wonder, well, how are you invested? Here are some things that we have found working with clients, and these are things you can, look at for yourself where some red flags. We haven't talked about an emergency fund along with investments. It's really good to have just cash emergency fund in an account that you can relatively easily access it. Having less than 3 months of living expenses in cash, or also having too much money in cash. We found that in general, women tend to be too conservative, so they have too much money in CDs and money market, and your money's not working as hard as it could for you because it's not really keeping up with inflation. And then individual stocks. We're really not fans of individual stocks because if something happens with that company, your portfolio takes a major hit. And by the time you found out about it, the stock has already plummeted. So you really don't need that type of risk to achieve your goals. Having low cost, well-diversified mutual funds and ETFs really provides a better investment experience to reach your goals. And also the expense ratios. Some mutual funds have high expense ratios, and it really eats away at your returns. So one thing you could do is go to morningstar.com and input that ticker, the ticker of the ticker symbol of that mutual fund to see how expensive it is. And expensive is anything like 0.8 or above. Like the
Definitely tune in for the next one because we're going to dive into
Yeah, I'm
the
okay. I'm
real.
going down that rabbit hole. See, I can just
No,
sit
that's
all
okay.
day talking about
We're going to show it on the screen and actually
Oh,
go into
yeah.
how to read the expense
Yes,
rate and
yes. I
everything.
won't go into that, but yes, that's all very important.
There's so
Okay.
much in this
Oh,
topic, so much.
I gave away the okay.
Oh
Okay.
no.
I'm rushing and okay, so the biggest mistake women make when planning for retirement. So guess what that is. We've dropped hints throughout this webinar. The biggest mistake is not thinking long term to reduce your future taxes. We're also focused on how do I reduce my taxes now? That's very important. But what's more important is how do I reduce taxes over my lifetime? And the recent Secure Act 2.0 legislation has made this even more important than ever. And what we mean by that is having strategic Roth IRA conversions. And you may wonder, well, gosh, what is that? Well, what that is it's strategically moving money from a pre-tax account like an IRA, and you pay tax on that amount, and then you move it into a Roth IRA. And then once it's in the Roth IRA, that Roth IRA grows for you tax-free, and you can take it out tax-free. And basically, what you're doing is you are filling up tax, um, your tax bracket. You don't want to withdraw so much that it shoots you up into the next tax bracket where you pay more in taxes. What you want to do is just evenly, just take a little bit. And we actually do tax planning projections for our clients so they'll know exactly how much they should take out each year if a Roth IRA conversion strategy is appropriate for them. And then we also show them how much money they would save over their lifetime. And we take advantage of low income years. Let's say they retire, and then there's going to be like a 2 or 3 year gap before they start collecting Social Security or taking required minimum distributions. There'll be a gap in their income. We can fill up those income tax buckets with a strategic Roth IRA. And we have found it's amazing the amount of money you save over taxes. We've seen from saving 100,000 to actually saving a couple of $1 million over your lifetime in taxes. And this is even more important now with the Secure 2.0 Act because now for your beneficiaries, when they inherit an IRA, they have to take it out in 10 years. It used to be according to their own lifetime, so they can just take it out whenever they want to, but now they have to take it out in 10 years. So if it's a taxable account and they have to take it out in 10 years, that may shoot them up into a higher bracket, so they're getting less benefit from that account. More money is going towards taxes and not to them, which was, what you had intended. So,
Versus
yeah,
if they inherit the Roth IRA account, they don't have that tax,
right,
which is
right.
amazing.
If they
So
inherit, yeah, we love Roth IRA accounts for beneficiaries because then your beneficiary has this stream of tax-free income. Now, they still have to take it out in 10 years, but they have the freedom and the flexibility. They could take more out the first year, or they could wait until the 10th year, and there's not a tax impact. All righty. So, a client success story. Some of you on the webinar may recognize Teresa. Teresa came in feeling uneducated about the components of retirement. She was unsure if she could retire early, and she wanted to start a business that aligned with her passion. And she also wanted to know all of the pieces of the financial plan. She really wanted to feel comfortable that everything was taken care of. She wanted to know what she didn't know. And so we worked together. We got a really good understanding of her goals and her values, what's important to her. And we did a very thorough cash flow projection. We looked at her sources of income, her expenses. We covered risk management. We created an investment strategy for her, and we educated her on that strategy so she understands why she's invested the way she is. Insurance, estate planning, and we also did some business planning for her, which I really enjoyed. That was really fun. And so we made sure that she was educated in all of those pieces of the pie that we talked about. And therefore, she felt very comfortable in making that leap. And she quit her job and she retired early at the age of 58. And she's been happily retired now for 6 years. And she has a very successful business. And this business allows her to work part-time on her schedule. She's living her best life. She can now work on improving her own health, her flexibility, and her strength. She does Tai Chi, yoga, and Pilates. And she's living her dream now of a stress-free life. And I tell you, she now makes women decades younger than her jealous because she's so flexible.
Oh man, I'm stretching every day because of Teresa.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm getting there, baby steps.
One day, Angela.
One day.
One day.
One day, but it makes us happy to help our clients achieve their goals. It's really great to participate in helping them, on their journey. So, so that is the roadmap, the blueprint. Know your cash flow, get an estimate of your health care, long-term care costs in your area, and be a smart investor. And I know that all of these pieces, there's a lot to it, but these are the pieces that if you have a good, just a basic foundation, again, baby steps, if you have a foundation of these items, it just helps to build that confidence. So there we have it. There we have it. Yay, 2 minutes to spare. 2 minutes to spare. So for those of you who are not already clients, if you're interested in discussing your situation and you want to see if we can help you, feel free to schedule a brief phone call. Amy's going to put in the chat a link to schedule an introductory phone call. And even if you don't become a client, we're really passionate about helping women. And so I'm sure you'll find the conversation to be valuable and will at least point you in the right direction for your next best step. And just want to remind you, we also have a newsletter that you can sign up for at the bottom of our website. We have a YouTube channel. We have a couple of videos you can check out. Of course, we have a website. And yeah, let's see. Yeah,
Are
nice.
there any questions that anyone would like to add at this point? We'd be happy
Yeah.
to answer any.
Any questions? Don't be afraid of the timing. We're happy to stay on if you want to have any of your questions answered. Any questions out there?
Thank you for coming.
Let's see. Oh, someone wanted to know more about the HSA. Yeah, to have an HSA account, you have to have a high deductible insurance plan. You have to be on that. You have to be on a high deductible insurance plan. And with that, it allows you to invest money. Yeah. And there's lots of ways to enhance that. And so I won't get into it right now because there's just a lot of different pieces to it.
I do think we're going to do another webinar on that, though. That is a very loaded topic that is fascinating. So I think that'll be a good topic to really dive into for an hour.
Yes, yes, you're so welcome. You're so welcome for the webinar. Um, okay, it is 1:03. If you have a question that you would like answered, feel free to email one of us and we'll be more than happy to answer it for you. It has been so wonderful. Thank you for attending. And if in the future you'd like to reach out and talk more about your situation, you can use that link. There's also a link on the top of our website to schedule a phone call if ever you want to just chat about your situation. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.